viewers, and welcome back to the VarsityWA Midweek Podcast. I'm your host, Todd Milles. We have a really good show for you this week, starting with our interview with Chris Gibson, the longtime White River girls basketball coach. He is on the verge of joining that very elite group at 700 wins. He would become the fourth girls coach in Washington State history to get to that plateau. He talks a little bit about his journey from Franklin Pierce to White River and how coaching has changed. And then we welcome back our regular guest, Matt Evans from Evans Rankings, to talk about our all-classification top 5 in boys and girls basketball. Stick around. Welcome to the opening segment of the VarsityWA Midweek Podcast. I'm your host, Todd Milles. Joining us as our special guest for the week is none other than the dean of girls basketball right now, the current all-time winningest active girls basketball coach in Washington, Chris Gibson at White River. When you hear that, Chris, what do you think? And all-time winningest active girls basketball coach in Washington.
You know, it takes you back. I mean, when people ask you how much longer you have to go, either they want to, they know you're old or they want you out. So, but seriously, it means a lot. I think longevity is tough in our business today. Coaching, I don't care what sport it is. And proud of the fact that, it's been 37 years as a head basketball coach and 29 here at White River High School. And I take a lot of pride in that. I think that not the wins, certainly not the wins, cliche-ish, right? It's about the kids, but it really is. I've got great kids. I've got a super parent base. And it keeps, when you hear it says it keeps you young, it keeps you grounded. Whenever I think I'm having a bad day at the desk as an athletic director, you get up and walk the hallways, and I get to go to practice every night. And it's a great way to end my day. And, it's as rewarding now as it was, 30 years ago, but I think more so now because I understand more, than I did when I was a young whippersnapper back then. But yeah, it's an honor, obviously.
Well, let's give some background here, because right now, by one win, you are currently the all-time winningest active basketball coach, boy or girl, in the state of Washington. Now, Mike Bethea at Rainier Beach is right on your heel. He's one win behind. I think he plays O'Day before you have another game to tie you. But, I mean, you're at 692 wins, Chris. 3 coaches in state history on the girls' side have gotten to 700 wins. Kurt DeHaan, number 1 in the state, 772. Al Smink at Sunnyside Christian was 711, and Kurt DeHaan was at Linden Christian. We all know him. He was the legend up there in Linden. And then Al Aldrich at Pasco at 710. And then there are 3 coaches on the boys' side that have reached 7 wins. So we actually have an opportunity to kind of send 2 coaches this season into the 700 win club, making the total 8, you and Mike Bethea. What's been key to your success? I'm interested to hear, and then we'll get into sort of your background and how you got into to basketball coaching, because I think there are a lot of people that don't know that you started in a different sport and then kind of took a U-turn into basketball.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's humbling. I mean, to hear you mention the names that you did, to be even in the same paragraph or sentence with them, and it's humbling. It's an honor, and for me to keep on going, you have to have the passion, the desire, and we'd be lying to you if there weren't those days or times you're like, man, is this still worth it? But that happens in my day job more than my night job, my friend. And just so honored to be able to walk into a gym with a group of kids that care about our core values, and they work hard. There's no drama. There's no maintenance. I get to coach basketball and be around great people all the time. That keeps you coming back for more. And I think that they teach me things. My kids teach me things every day. And I think I'm getting better at things. The things we value, what's important, not just wins and losses. I think when you're 24 years old and you're a head coach, all you're worrying about is, can I get a win that night? And there's so many more things that are more important than that. But when you say, 692, whatever, my coaching staff, Megan's and Brian's and my Georgia and Kendall Bird and my wife, they keep track of those things, the wins. I couldn't tell you what the number was, until you had asked yesterday, and I had asked my wife. So they keep track of it.
So a 1982 Puyallup grad, you have a background in playing baseball and
Yeah, yeah,
basketball, and you graduate, go to Green. The thing I didn't know about you is you started at Boeing. I did not know
yeah,
that.
yeah. My mom worked there, and and I was at Green River, and my mom goes, "Hey, I can get you a job here." I'm like, then you look at the money, and you're like, "Oh, yeah, really? Okay, I can do that." But yeah, started in softball. It was one of those things where, yeah, chauvinism lives when you're 19 years old. My sister played on a softball team. My dad's coaching. And he goes, "I need some help." And I look at him. Are you crazy? I'm not. You want me to coach my Carter's softball team with you? Like, girls can't play sports. What are you talking about? And I tell you what, it went from there in 1984 to 2 years later. We have a select team, and we're in Kentucky at a national tournament, and it just exploded. I mean, that's how I got my start. And I was 22 years old, and took a team to Michigan, a select team with 13 different kids from different high schools, and that's how I got my start. A real passion for it, and we traveled the country, and we were fortunate enough to win a national championship, and really, really, had great experiences there, and being able to travel and learn so much about that, and having an assistant coach that's 24 years old, and going into an 18-year-old girl's house with her parents and sitting down and recruiting them to play in this team, and you're 22 years old, and they're looking at you like, "What? You want to do what?" And really learned a lot about you know just kids, and the realm of discipline that it took, and to when you're close to age with kids, and young teachers deal with that in today's world. But yeah, started. We practiced at Franklin Pierce High School. I'll try to keep this brief and not be boring. And Jim Meyerhoff was the athletic director at Franklin Pierce, and there was a girls' basketball opening. When I was 24, I loved basketball. It was a passion of mine, and I always had to deal with him because I was reserving the field all the time. And Jim goes, "Hey, you want to apply for this basketball job?" Trying to do my best Jim Meyerhoff interpretation here, gruff. And yeah, so I got the job because no one else wanted it. Nobody else wanted it. So got my first job, 24 years old. Season started, I was 25. I had no idea what I was doing. I went and saw Dar Smith, the old coach at Sumner High School, best friend's dad. Started reading books, doing things, and I had six seniors, inherited six seniors. We won 8 games. We shot 33% from the foul line. We shot 19% from the floor, and we won 8 games. And I'll never forget that senior class because they all thought I was going to cut them. And we had conversation. I kept them all, different skill levels. We weren't very talented, but I still have two of those kids that to this day are probably 56 years old, 55 years old, that stay in touch with me through email. And it means a lot. But that's how I got my start. And then, then I coached softball at Franklin Pierce, did that, hung on to that as long as I could. But how summer basketball is. I wanted to build a summer program, so I gave up softball, got into basketball full time, and that's kind of how it all started for me.
How long into your Franklin Pierce career did you feel like you started to sort of get the hang of it?
You know, we went to the state tournament twice in year 4 and year 8, and probably year 3. I had some really cool, supportive parents and some great kids, but not a lot of basketball talent. You'd have a basketball camp there, and there's 15 kids at it. And so it was really important that we hung on to what we had. We had a couple of really good players and some other kids that just wanted to be there for whatever reason. I want to be part of a team and do that. And we worked really hard, and we scrapped and clawed. And if you would ask me in my first year what a district tournament bracket was, I would have said, "What are you talking about?" And I just had to learn. And back in those days, what's a cell phone, right? And I had to learn a lot about the processes and what. I think year 3, it really started to be like, you know what, I think we might be pretty good. Back then it was Gig Harbor, Tahoma, the coaches. I go to a coaches meeting, Todd, and I'd sit there in the back of the room and not speak and not say a word. And kind of like just in awe of these, whether it's Tim Nelson and Paul Berg and in the old days, and Marianne Stoichen and some of the names of the past. I was the young kid sitting in the room, and I learned a lot by listening, just kind of listening and seeing how they ran their programs. And when losing by 50 builds character. And I tell you what, I've been on both ends, and I can certainly appreciate the fact we win a lot of games like that now, but I was on the other end. It really helped me. But yeah, you learn a lot. I think year 3, to answer your questions, when I started to understand that, we can be pretty good. I think we're starting to do some things, and I didn't know it all. And I think, I started branching out more and asking more people questions and, trying to fit things that fit my players more. Instead of my first year, I'm like, I'm going to run this and run this. And no, it didn't work and it had no chance of working. Instead of looking at my talent and going, okay, we got to do this to try to survive. So I think year three, the light came on a little bit about, learning how to adjust and do different things and game plan and scout and do things like that.
You
The
took
old days of
Franklin.
scouting when you, sorry, the old days of scouting when you're exchanging VHS tapes in the Fred Meyer parking lot. Those days.
Yeah, we've come a long way in the
Yeah, yeah, we have.
you took Franklin Pierce to two state tournaments. You've
Yeah.
taken White River to pretty much every big gymnasium in the state of Washington, Yakima,
Yeah.
up in Seattle, the Tacoma Dome. You took him back there last year a number of times. But what do you remember about your first state tournament trip with
This
Franklin Pierce?
it's a great question, and I've got the answer. I don't have to think about it. We are, we're at the Tacoma Dome. In the old days, you go to the state draw. You're in the draw, and Cindy's drawn it out of a hat, and your whole future depends on some guy pulling your name out of the hat. So my first game ever coaching was against Prairie, against Al Aldridge, and I'm sitting there, and I can't feel my fingers, my toes. I can't even. I'm like, and I'm looking down there at him, and I knew who he was, and I knew what they were all about. And I looked down there, we're going to lose by 80, and I thought, you know what? I'm gonna walk down there and say hi. I'm gonna go down there. And at that point in time, I was 27 years old or something. And I love Al, but you can tell him the story. I walked down there and he looked at me like I was a fly on his shoe. I go, hi, I'm Chris Gibson, and nice to meet you. It's an honor to coach against you. And he looked at me like I was a fly. Yeah, okay. All right, good luck. All right, see you later. I go walking back to my bench. My assistant coach, Ron Batoni, goes, how'd that go? I said, not good. And they pounded us. But amazing experience. I was like my players. It felt so big, and the basket looked like it was the size of a pea, and we kept throwing balls out of bounds. It was just an amazing experience. Our school was so excited, the state send off, the whole thing. But I loved it. I got a taste of it, and it was just fun to be part of. My kids just loved it. We lasted 2 games. It was quick, and I think we were home the next day and done by noon. But it was an amazing experience, and one that I didn't know if I'd ever get back there again. And we talked about that. We don't know if we're ever going to come back again. And at FP, it took the right kids, and it took 3 or 4 good players, and then 4 years later, we were able to make it back. And it was just an honor to be there. Great experience, though. It was incredible.
Yeah, there was a reason why Al Aldrich and Dale Poffenroth got together in a back room at the WIA office for state draws. They're the same personality.
Yeah,
Probably.
absolutely. Yeah, when Al's assistant said when they drew Franklin Pierce, all he heard was good draw. That's all I heard. And then I knew it wasn't good.
Well, you must have a special, and I don't want to ask you about your relationship with Jim Meyerhoff Sr. Because obviously you must have a special relationship with him because he eventually went to Buckley and said, "Hey, we'd love to have you up here," and you've built quite the legacy up there. But just having him as an athletic director, having him believe in you at such a young age, and then say, "Hey, come up here and do the same thing." Can you explain that relationship to us?
I can. Intimidating at times when you're younger. Um, I'm in my 18th year as athletic director for the school district. I would not be sitting in this chair if it was not for him. I claim that he is the only guy dumb enough to hire me twice. And we just inducted him to our Hall of Fame here at White River this past year, and we stay in touch. And it's so important to, my development as a young coach. And I just coached my second game. I remember the score of my first game. I just coached my second game, and I got after it, and I get after the officials a little bit. And he called me in his office, and he goes, "Sit down." And I sat down, and I was smart enough to be scared. And he looked at me straight in the eye, and he goes, "If you want to continue being the basketball coach here at this high school, you will not behave like you did last night." And I was dumb enough to say, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, you can't treat officials that way. You can't yell at the officials and treat them that way. And he goes, how long do you want your career to be? I said, well, long time. And yeah, I learned valuable lessons from him, and just subtle things. He was a softball coach there, and he was gracious enough to let me have that job. And his first year out, we won the state softball championship at Franklin Pierce, and came out of nowhere. And he went on that trip with us and was part of that experience with us. And it was great to share that with him. But the lessons continued over the years. Even when I was at White River, always someone I could call and talk to, and I learned a lot from him. I learned how to tell you tell the truth. You tell people how you feel, and you let your people. I'm fortunate enough to have 100 coaches that work with me, not for me. And he taught me how to have those difficult conversations, the clear, precise communication. And sometimes you don't want to hear it, but I had to hear it as a young coach. And he let me know that, hey, this is not okay. This is not the way you're going to do this. We're going to do it this way. And he really cared about my future, I believe. I think he saw something in me, and he saw that I had potential, and he invested in me. And like to this day, as a coach, as a athletic administrator, I would not be here without Jim Meyerhoff. And we were able to spend some time. And I told him that when his Hall of Fame induction last year was emotional. And I told him, I said, well, I would not be here without you and the things that you taught me. So valuable lessons, an important part of my life.
29th season at White River, a lot has changed in not only the girls basketball coaching landscape, but the coaching landscape in general. A lot of positives about the growth of girls basketball, in the skill and the popularity, but also some things that make the job a lot more difficult. How have you seen this job change in your 29 years at White River?
A lot, a lot. I've got a quote on my wall over here that I'm looking at a distance here that Frank Martin, longtime coach, he was at Kansas State, South Carolina, all over the place. And he goes, those of you who say that kids have changed are dead wrong. He goes, parents have changed. And we know that. And I think there's some similarities I hang on to. I keep telling myself these kids aren't different. They need us, and the expectations of kids and children have changed, and players. And AAU is the best thing to happen to girls basketball and the worst at the same time. And basketball trainers, and the game of girls basketball it's so amazing, and how much has changed and developed. And you look at these kids now versus 15 years ago. They kind of, they get amazing training, they get amazing, AAU opportunities, but I think what's missing too is the grounded experience at the high school level. And and that comes from coaches. Longevity is important, and I think of the coaches that that's really fun for me. The coaching friends that I have in the coaching community, whether it's Robbie Rabb or whether it's Rob Adams or Brady Bonner or Ken Roberts, or I can go on and on and on and on for all these coaches over the years. We all talk about the same things, about how, yes, it's different. It's harder. The expectations from parents, it's tougher. They expect more. And yes, it's always about playing time and what's in it for me. And so it's different there, but I also try to keep it the same. We talk up to our kids. I talk to my players about, let's be honest here. Here's the pie, and the piece of the pie you're going to get may not be what you want. And we are brutally honest with our people. I think that helps us. We don't have all the answers, Todd, but we just talk about, here's your role, here's your piece, here's the pie, here's what you're doing, and here's what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to help you become a better person, not just a better player. And here's how you're going to act when you're sitting on the bench and you haven't played all game long. And I think the relationships with your players that don't play very much, that aren't as skilled, that's what holds your team together. That's the glue that holds your foundation together. And that's where I spend a lot of my time, is with those kids that may not be as skilled and may not be the best player, but we spend a lot of time working on those kind of things. And I know there's a lot of coaches out there that do that spend time with that. We talk to our kids about what the environment's like and what parents expect. And I think that there's a lot of coaches that have given us up in frustration. And we've lost a lot of amazing coaches that I want my son or daughter to play for. We've lost a lot of those people because they finally wave the white flag and say, I'm not doing it. Here, I've been so fortunate. And, my parents let me do my job. They leave me alone, and maybe they think I'm old and crotchety and don't want to approach me, but I've got great people that know basketball. They trust me with their kids, and they don't always agree with what I do. And people in the bleachers don't always agree with the decisions I make, the things I do. What I try to do, though, is be honest with their kid, here's where you're at. Here's what I need from you. Here's what we love about you. And here are the things you got to get better at. And we talk about it all the time. Don't be a turd. Well, that's our saying. Don't be a turd. No turds in the herd. We talk about that all the time, how drama and selfish people, they ruin professional workplaces. They ruin basketball teams, softball teams. And so we spend a lot of time in trying to have a great experience, and the basketball all comes together eventually. And so far, when people ask me how much longer I'm going to do this, it's an easy answer. Someday when I get kids that I don't want to be around, or parents that are just all over me all the time, and kids that are selfish and don't want to be part of a team, that's when I'll go spend more time with my dog duck hunting and things like that. But for now, I embrace the change because I'm not willing to give in on it. It's too easy to say, well, it's just different. Kids and parents are different. That's the easy way out. I want to embrace the fact that kids are kids, and kids want to be, they want you to be honest with them, and they want to be able to trust you. And I think that if we hang on to those things, we can keep going at this. And there may come a day where, I can't take it anymore and things are just awful. But right now, I'm not even close to that. I get to go to the gym today at 2:30 and be with a bunch of kids that just work hard and get after it. And they really like each other, and they support each other. And the kid on my bench last night that played a lot, the game was not very close, but in a very tough game would not play very much. That's the first kid standing up, waving a towel, cheering her teammates on. That's when I know we've done something right. Long answer. Sorry.
No, that's why we have
soapbox. I'm on my soapbox.
We love you to fill space, Chris Gibson.
Yeah. I'm soapboxing.
But I am going to put you on the spot. And for the viewers that don't know, that Chris and his wonderful wife, Shelly, have a retirement home in Eastern Washington. I know this isn't going to last forever, but let's just say next year's your last year. And I'm just saying this in theory for the question I'm going to ask. And you could take a starting five.
Oh, geez.
All-time great Hornets. Not necessarily the best players, but give me your starting five that you take with you to try and go win a state championship. And you have a fantastic all-state point guard right now in Maggie Schmitz, who, if people don't know, you need to get up to Buckley or get around the 3A NPSL or the postseason tournaments, the Tacoma Dome, and go watch her play. But if you could take five players that you've had at White River next year in your final season to go win a state championship.
You're okay. Here's the deal. If there are no viewers on this, I can probably narrow it down, but this is a tough spot. Maggie for sure. I told a college coach the other day, the best part about Maggie Schmidt, she's a better person than she is a player. And she's a treat. And I've got, people in mind, but you want five, you're not going to get it. I'm going to give you, there's a list of, you look at our history and you look back before I was here, you think of the Helen Mills, and you think of Renee Ross's, and you think of, there's Sam and Jesse Hubbard and Trisha Hermanson. You remember Trisha Hermanson and the kind of player she was, and Rainey Wiggin and Cassidy France and Kendall Bird, Kennedy Hobart, Brooke Paulson and Kara Markle. I could go on and on and on. So all the kids I've just missed, Todd, those emails I tell you that I don't get, I'm going to get those this afternoon because of you, because they're going to say, how come you didn't mention my kid? But there's a list of kids that have meant a lot to this program and meant a lot here. So if you're going to get five, that's hard. That's hard. But with that list of kids I gave you, you can go battle anybody and have a good time doing it.
Yeah,
but I've been blessed.
You can have a roster. You can have a roster of 50.
That's a roster. And I've missed kids. I've missed kids. I've missed kids there, but just, just great people that we still stay in touch with. My coaching staff are all former players, and I'm so blessed to have them and the longevity of our staff. We talk about coaches getting out of the business. I've got coaches that I've had for years and years and years and years that have been through this, that, taking care of me is a full-time job, brother. And these people are amazing. These women I've got that I'm surrounded by are amazing role models that you want your daughter to be around on a daily basis, and former players that understand what we're trying to get done and care about kids and spend a lot of time in their lives dedicating, themselves to helping these kids. So how's that for a wishy-washy answer to your question, my friend, in my last year of coaching?
You're going to still continue to get Christmas cards from both your former players and your parents, man. I listen, I knew I wasn't getting five names, but
no, you weren't getting five, but also as coaches know, as all coaches know, you mentioned Shelly, and she's my scorekeeper, and she, we've got this beautiful house in Eastern Washington that we don't see as much as we want to, but she loves basketball, and she's allowed me to continue to go on this journey, and she does it with me, and I'm so blessed to have her to support, this journey that we love. And we have them over for Christmas dinner, we do our gift exchanges, and she's right in the middle of everything, and having her part of it is why I'm able to do what I do.
One of the best to ever coach girls basketball in the state of Washington, but also a guy, I know I say this a lot, but one of my all-time favorite people in 30 years as sports writer to get to talk to. It's a privilege to be able to talk to this man, and I'm still glad he's still at it because he's a well of knowledge, and B, he's a damn good coach. Chris Gibson at White River girls basketball, a team that I still expect to see in the Tacoma Dome again here in March. Thanks for joining the podcast. We will see you soon, my friend.
Yeah, it's an honor. Thanks for taking the time with me. Appreciate it.
Welcome back to the final segment of our VarsityWA Midweek Podcast, joined by one of our regular guests from the fall, Mr. Matt Evans, Mr. Computer Rankings, Tri-Cities teacher. I know he's been scoping the scores. Knowledge base from 4A matches everything he knows about 1B. The guy is an animal. Matty, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, and as good as I can be for a Tuesday night.
Well, last week we kind of went through each classification, what the computer kind of spat out on top tens, and then what human Matt Evans said. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about all classification. Each of us are going to sort of give our all classification top five in descending order, starting with the boys' side, and then we'll go to the girls' side, Matt. So let's talk about your number 5 team on the boys' side. Who would that be and what?
I'm kind of struggling with this one because I have like 4 or 5 teams that I really feel haven't really separated them yet. I'm kind of looking at like your O'Days. I'm looking at your Eastside Catholics. I'm looking at your Seattle Preps. I'm looking at, even Gonzaga Prep. I mean, just there's a lot of teams that I feel I feel solid about 4. I really feel solid about 4, but that 5th slot, I'm going to put O'Day on there just because, O'Day basketball knows how to win when it gets to this point of the year. And I think that, while they did struggle at their holiday tournament, I think that they've got a really good team and they've got enough in the rest of their schedule to make that positive impact. The couple games against Seattle Prep coming up, I think those could be games that really help push their momentum into state.
Yeah, I have O'Day at 5 as well. And I talked to Dave Wagenblas, the coach at Mount Spokane, who came over and did sort of a West Side circuit, 3 games, Mount Side, Glacier Peak, O'Day. Felt like his team played the best against O'Day. Thought that O'Day was really good. O'Day's pressure, coached by longtime coach Jason Kerr, it just kind of wears you out. And the Webster kid's really, really good. And what I do like about this O'Day team, Matt, is they have guards that look to get downhill. And not only are they looking to score, but if they see somebody out of the corner of their eye to dish the ball to, they will make the extra pass. Brian Webster's a really good guard. He kind of leads this group. I think they have enough, lanky height to kind of, tango with some of the bigger teams like Rainier Beach and Eastside Catholic and in 3A Metro. But as you know, they're not trying to win January. They're not trying to win December. O'Day is great about peaking at the right time. That's a Jason Kerr signature move, and I think O'Day will be playing its best basketball at the end of the regular season, heading into the playoffs. All right, number 4 on Matt Evans' all classification boys basketball rankings.
Well, my number 4 team is Auburn, and I really like the Trojans this year. This is a team that over the course of the last 5 years, including this year, they have 108 wins. They know how to win. The NPSL may not be the toughest league for them, but they went out on the road this year, and they nearly pulled off a win down at the Damien Classic. Really tough loss to Los Alamitos in the championship game of their bracket there. But I feel like Auburn has enough different ways to attack and beat you that I think that they could be a team that once they get into the end of the playoffs, I think they could be a really tough out.
I have Mount Si at number 4, and I know that's a bit of a risk. It's, they're still in the middle of a jigsaw puzzle. They're trying to figure it out. But you talk to coaches around the classification, and when it comes to pedigree, when it comes to roster build, they're massive. Matt, the Heidi's, they've got the younger Hennig that's going to Boise State. They got Mentic running the point. They've got enough good, strong guard play. But they just haven't been able to kind of find a groove, kind of find a rhythm. And that's why I think by February, Jason Griffith's been at it a while over there. He's won a pair of state championships. I think he will get this team going in the right direction. I still have questions about what the offensive ceiling is of this group, but I think come the playoffs, when it's sort of the grinder time of the season, they're going to rebound, they're going to be physical, they're going to defend, and even if they only score 60 points, I think they're going to win their fair share of games and be a really scary proposition in the WIA playoffs. All right, Matt Evans, number 3 on your all classification boys list.
Well, if you say your number 4 is risk, then I'm right there with you. I have Mount Si at number 3. And the reason why I have them at number 3 is very similar to yours, but I think that, people can look at their record and think, oh, this Mount Si team's not as good as the other ones in the past, but they have played a really tough schedule. And the rest of their schedule, I think they have 6 games remaining in the regular season. The only team below 500 is Renton, who's 7-8. But that's a strong Renton team, 2A playing up in a 3A, 4A classification league. You've also got huge games against Bellevue, Lake Washington, Liberty, Vissaquah. And if these guys come through and and Puyallup as well on MLK Day, these guys have a big opportunity to shift the perception of their team. And I think that if they can even go 4-2 in the next 6 games, I think that sets them up to be just you're going to get that Mount Si perception back. But yeah, I really like Mount Si. I think they're going to be a tough out.
I have Eastside Catholic at number 3. And Lauren and I got to see them last week at Rainier Beach. Got down big, but they have a front court that I think can match up with Rainier Beach. And I don't know anybody else around 3A that can say that. Acklog and I love Titan McNeil. I love his work rate. He was the one that spent a lot of time guarding Stokes in that game. They have a really promising 9th grader. If they get some guard play, and a lot of that comes down to Dash Ingram running the point and making sure he facilitates this offense. I think this is a team that is a matchup problem for most teams, and one that can push Stokes and some of those big pieces from Rainier Beach. They can kind of they're strong enough and tall enough to kind of push those guys out of the key. But I do like the makeup of this team. They didn't really handle Rainier Beach's pressure very well at times last week in the first game. They're going through their low right now, and they're still trying to find themselves. I know they've lost 3 in a row, but come February, March, you ask anybody in 3A, yeah, they don't want to play Rainier Beach, but they certainly don't want to play Eastside Catholic either, just with that front court, especially in big arenas like the Tacoma Dome. I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to have the same 2 teams coming home. I'm curious to see what order you have them in. So we'll start. Who is your number 2 team in the all classification boys list?
My number 2 team, and it's not my homer talking, but I've got the Richland Bombers at number 2. I feel like if you've watched any Bomber basketball this year, this is the best team they've had in a long time. And it's because of Landon Northrup and Lance Hardvet. They any other year, you would say that that's the best duo in the state. They're averaging 51 points per game between the 2 of them. They both shoot over 57% from the floor. The team itself averages almost 90 points a game. In fact, they haven't scored less than 91 since they played in Utah in December. So this team is just humming. They still have the second half of MCC play to go, but I don't see any hiccups, honestly, unless somebody gets injured. I don't see anything. I see the Bombers just rolling through the rest of the season. I think they're the best 4A team, and it's going to take a lot to stop them.
I know we've had Richland ranked number one in 4A since the preseason, but I was more inclined to think that there was a tier of teams, Matt. You mentioned Auburn, Mount Si at the time, Lake Washington, Camas. A lot of people are high on Camas, and I think by the end of the season they're going to be a formidable opponent. But after those two wins against the Utah teams, and then beating Chiawana, I think is as good a number two team as there are in most leagues in 4A around the state. I was convinced then that they were the team to beat in 4A. Clearly, nobody has an offensive duo like Richland. I think the question with them, and I got to see it in the Tacoma Dome last year, is what happens on that particular game when shots aren't falling. How good can their defense be? I I think Earl Striford has this defense a little bit in better shape than maybe it was at the end of the year. I know that's a huge emphasis for him, but man, they have all the pieces and they have two guys that can go get a bucket against anybody. If you've never seen Northrop Hornvent play, I'm talking about listeners, readers. You have to go watch him. Go watch both of these young men play. Their ability to drive to the basket with their strength and shoot the basketball from the perimeter. They're pretty much unguardable, Matt. And you get to see it more often than I do. And I'm really excited. I know this sounds like it's Earl Striford's final season. I'd love to see the Bombers send them out the right way. And right now, in January, mid-January, I think they're clearly the team to beat for it. And number one on your boys all classification list, Matt Evans, who you got?
I think it's pretty clear. It's the Hanford. No, sorry, guys. Sorry. It's Rainier Beach. I mean, it's you have to be living under a rock to have anybody but Rainier Beach on there. I mean, they go down and get some huge wins at Hoop Hall West. They're going off to Massachusetts here this weekend to play another national game. It's just it's not just the hype. Like they really are really good. And like I said with Northrop and Hornfeld, any other year you'd say that was the best duo in the state, but man, Stokes and Crawford, that's a dynamic duo there. It's I would love to get over to the west side to watch them play in person. They're so exciting. I think that, obviously they have some weaknesses. I don't know what those are. But Eastside Catholic has some size that could probably push them around, like you had mentioned in your thing. I don't know. I think Rainier Beach is, clearly the best team in the state.
Yeah, I agree. Rainier Beach, I have at number one as well. Simply, they have Tyron Stokes, and when they get in trouble, and when they get in some tough spots, Matt, they can just tell him to use your strength, use your 6'7" frame, and go get us a bucket, and he can do it. There just aren't very many people in high school around the country who can keep him out of the lane. Is this the best perimeter shooting team I've seen at Rainier Beach? Not even close. In fact, I would argue last year's team was better from the perimeter. Probably a better offensive team. But this is a team that can grind. This is a team that can score. You mentioned J.J. Crawford. He gets better every single day. He has a lot more to his game than people think. He can score on floaters. He can score mid-range. He can shoot the three. They've got the brothers. They've got length. They got Achilles Reyna, who's finally eligible. He gives them another rebounder and another scorer. Either if they want to want him to come off the bench or start him. So they have a lot of different ways to beat people. But like I said, when it gets close, like it did last Monday against Eastside Catholic, it was Stokes, Crawford, go win us the game. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to do it. Well, let's jump over to the girls' side. An exciting season so far in all classifications. Top 5 all classification rankings on the girls' side. Let's start at number 5. Matt Evans, who do you got at number 5?
Well, I am dipping down to the 2A classification, and I'm going to put on the Linden Lions as my number 5 team here. I think that there may be some. I think that they might struggle a little bit with some 3A 4A teams, but man, this team is just all around good. I watched all of their games in the Linden Christmas Classic, and they just there's so much. They just have so many different ways to beat you. I mean, in the 2A classification, there's not many teams that can size up with them, but they're just, they're extremely talented. I'm really excited for this Linden team. I think that if they were 3A, 4A, I think that they could be a semifinalist.
I have Gonzaga Prep number 5, and with the potential to be higher, and a lot of that's based on the new and improved Isla Cornwell. I mean, 2 years ago, as a ninth grader, she led this team to the championship game against the clear favorite in Camas. Probably weren't going to beat the paper makers with all those seniors, but she made a huge impression in the Tacoma Dome. She just, her intensity, her competitiveness, even as a ninth grader, I mean, it was so evident to watch her try and get to the basket. She's bigger, she's stronger, and she's healthy. She missed all of last year. This is a group that doesn't have a lot of height, Matt, but they have enough scoring on the perimeter and ways to create chaos on the perimeter with their defense that you look at what they did tonight against Ridgeline and Freddie Recco, a really good, solid 3A GSL team, just kind of tore them apart. If there's a real chance that this team could be undefeated going into maybe a district championship game against Chiawana, or into regionals, or even into the Tacoma Dome. But I really like this Gonzaga Prep team. It made a huge mark 2 years ago, and I think it's set on doing the same thing here in 2026. All right, let's go to your number 4 girls team in the all classification list. Matt Evans, who would that be?
I have to agree with you. I have Gonzaga Prep at 4. I just for the same reason. I mean, they're just it's echo everything you just said. I agree with you. I think that there's a really solid chance that these guys are unbeaten going into a potential district championship against Chiawana. They have really one big test coming up with the game against Meade on February 3rd, but other than that, they're playing good all around basketball, and I was excited to see. Yeah, that first game with Ridgeline going to overtime, I was excited to see how this one turned out, and they just took them to the woodshed. So yeah, I'm in total agreement with you about Gonzaga Prep.
I have Sumner, number 4, the returning state finalists from a year ago. Bring both of their key players back, and Olivia Collins and Kavehi Borden, both Division I players. Kavehi Borden's a junior. Olivia Collins is going to Portland State, and they added Ramaya Jackson, who played in the 4A SPSL at Emerald Ridge. Kind of an interesting player, more of a pickup player. If you saw her play at Emerald Ridge, likes to shoot the three, has some handles. And what Sumner's doing is they're utilizing her a lot in the high post. They're letting her just kind of survey what's going on and getting her two teammates involved. I think the biggest question mark with them is how solid are they at point guard? Kavehi Borden's played a lot of point guard, even though that's not her natural position. But this team is got rebounding, it's got experience, it's got go-to players. It just doesn't have a state championship, and it's been so close in so many seasons. Sooner or later, this group you'd think would get over the hump. It could be this year. It would not surprise me if there was a rematch with them and Davis of Yakima in the state championship game. But they're clearly the class of the SPSL, and could be they're easily a Final Four team and possibly in the state championship game again. Well, let's look. What do you have, Matt Evans, as your number 3 team in Washington girls basketball?
Number 3 team is Union. Oregon signee Brooklyn Haywood, averaging 30 something points a game. She's just, anytime you get the ball in her hand, she's a threat to score. But I think the thing that makes them so difficult this year is the fact that they have other options around her to be able to score. I mean, you've got Alea Smith, a freshman. You've got Mila Larry being able to, being down on the post as well. I mean, you've got some other options. It's not just Brooklyn Haywood's show, even though she can make it her show, and they could here. And I really like Union, just what they have left on their schedule. They do have a couple of like three really tough games against a tough Skyview team, but I think that they're going to be battle tested and ready to go once the state.
At number 3, I have Bellevue. And I remember last week you were kind of uncertain about who you'd even have ranked number 1 in 3A. I've had a chance to see Bellevue play up close. Very talented, very young, a lot of mouths to feed. Dylan Johnson in the open court is scary to watch. Robinson running the point. They've got 3 or 4 really, really impact ninth graders who I think are their best players in the half court. At times against, they played Davis Yakima during the holiday season, and at times, in stretches, they put it to Davis. The question is, are they going to be able to operate against zone defenses in the half court? And that's the big question. We saw what they could do in transition, all the stuff they could get off of defensive pressure, and they're gonna bring chaos in the tournament again. But what's going to happen if a team can slow them down and get them in the half court? I just don't know who in 3A, Matt, can do that. Maybe Roosevelt, maybe Freddie Recco and Ridgeline. But I think the 3A pool is so thin in 2025 and 26 that I think Bellevue is clearly the team to beat in 3A. And even a loss against Davis didn't really dissuade me from that thought. I think this is a team that's going to win multiple state championships. The question is, they have a lot of mouths to feed, and come February and March, is that going to be a problem? Is there going to be a natural pecking order? I hope this team features Dylan Johnson, because I think she's kind of the leader of this squad. But man, they have a lot of really good players behind her. All right, let's go to number 2 in the all classification girls basketball rankings. Matt Evans, who do you have?
Well, once again, I have the Bellevue Wolverines at number 2, and I'm a believer of them. You look at just the sheer size of them. They've got 6 kids, 6 girls that are 6 foot and over. Only one of them's a senior. So like you said, multiple state championships is very much in the realm of possibility. And the other thing about Bellevue that I really, really love is just, they did, going back and rewatching that game against Davis, there were times when they were the better team on the court there. And, they went down and played a very successful tournament down there at the Desert Holiday Classic. Their only loss being to national powerhouse Sierra Canyon. I think that, if we haven't gotten on the Bellevue train yet, they do have that MLK Day game against Sumner. That's going to be a really big one to watch. I think that if you're not sure about them yet, that's the one to watch to prove it to you.
I have Linden Lions at number 2. And I know that's going to surprise some people, but you see what they do in the summer when they play Bellevue, when they play Sumner, when they play even Davis, when they play Lake Washington, when they play the powerhouses, Woodinville, when they play the powerhouses of the state, they easily hold their own, and it's because they've got Finley Parcher, who is one of the more difficult matchups in the state of Washington in any classification. She's a little like Devin Coppinger of a few years ago against Nooksack Valley. I mean, she's so strong and yet skilled and athletic enough to get in the lane. And what do? I mean, if you get in her way, she'll just bull you over. If a bigger girl tries to take her way, she can go right around her. She's a good enough shooter. But they talk about a team that's rangy, defensive minded. It's just, I see why Rob Adams came back out of retirement to coach this team. And this might be this might be the best of the bunch. Now they're going to graduate a few seniors, Milles included, who's going to Hawaii at the end of the year, leaving kind of Finley Parcher to herself next year. But this might be the last of the consecutive 2A championships, sort of unbothered. Next year it's going to be a little more difficult, and 2A is a really good classification in the state of Washington, so they're not rolling over a bunch of has-beens and patsies. This is a really, really good classification that Linden's been dominating. But I really like this Lions team. And I think they would do really, really well in 3A. They might win 3A. They would easily give Bellevue its best game. And I think they would be easily a Final Four team in 4A. Matt Evans, let's go to the top of the heap. Your number one team in your all classification girls rankings is?
Davis Pirates. I think it's, they don't get a lot of, similar to Auburn, the Big Nine really isn't the best for them to get them ready. So they go out and just schedule very, very well. And, big wins over Camas, win on the road against Bellevue, couple big wins down at the Portland tournament. Of course, they did have a couple losses, but those losses are not just a 3-point loss to the number 11 ranked team in the nation. Oh, whatever, Yeah, a loss to South Medford, but South Medford is a state title contender down there. This team is so good. Cheyenne Hall, she's a junior, and she's it's so much fun to watch her play basketball. You've got just their supporting cast too. You've got, Nevaeh Parrish. You've got, I love watching these girls play, and I'm really excited for them they got a couple of really big opportunities coming up. Big game against Lake Washington on MLK Day. And then, next Wednesday, they're playing against Zilla, non-league game. That's going to be and Zilla in their own right are a top girls team in the state, and it's going to be just great basketball to watch. And yeah, I think it's very similar to the boys, where it's a no doubter that Davis is the best team, not only this year but probably next year as well.
Yeah, you mentioned the 4A CBBN, and by the way, Davis is my number one team as well. You mentioned the 4A CBBN, being down. That's why I think Akil White, got to the rooftops and started yelling and trying to pick up whoever would come over and play him. He would travel, kind of like last year when he went to Camas and Union. He knows he has something special over there, and he knows he had to get him battle tested. Cheyenne Hall is the best player in the state. Now, there are some players that could, knock her off that perch. Olivia Edwards at Lincoln is back, and she's a top 3 recruit in the country. But in terms of what their team has accomplished and what she's done, she's the best player in the state. And she can do it inside. She could do it outside. She does it on the offensive end. She does it on the defensive end. She's kind of mean in a good way. And then all those guards that are around her, I think I've mentioned this on the podcast last year. They're like little Terminators. They do not care who they are playing. They do not care what the uniform says in front of them, as an opponent. They just go out and do their thing, run their stuff, make big shots. And oh, by the way, if we get in a little bit of a pickle, we get in a little bit of a lull, if our coach can't fire us up, Cheyenne Hall can take care of the rest of it. And to me, they're clearly the team to beat in 4A, and I think they are the best team in the state of Washington now and probably heading into the postseason. Well, that'll do it this week for the VarsityWA Midweek Podcast. I'm Todd Milles, your host. I want to thank our guest, Chris Gibson, the White River girls basketball coach, and our friend in the Tri-Cities, Matt Evans from Evans Rankings. Do check out all his stuff starting Sundays. He's posting a lot of good stuff on Twitter. We will be back next week to talk some more basketball. We will see you then. This podcast is brought to you by Varsity Washington, your source for high school sports news, rankings, and more around the state of Washington. You can listen to new episodes of the VarsityWA Podcast weekly on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. And for more from VarsityWA, visit us at varsitywanews.com and subscribe for daily posts covering the high school sports landscape around the state. A special thank you to our guests on this episode and to Carl Johnson and Matt Bueller of the Portland-based band Edith and Axon for providing the music you hear at the beginning and end of this podcast each week. You can find the band on Instagram at Edith Axon Official. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in to the VarsityWA Podcast. For producer Lauren Smith, I'm your host, Todd Milles. We will be back next week.